Hello my friends, since the year is wrapping up, I thought I'd put together a quick video outlining my 5 favorites from 2023. I'm talking games, movies, shows, and I guess technology or hardware. This is not an awards wrap-up or anything like that. It's just my 5 favorites from each of these categories that I can think of as this year is winding down. And what a crazy, fantastic year it has been for entertainment. There have been so many ridiculous things to sink our teeth into this year. Let's start with my 5 favorite movies from 2023. Coming in at number 5 is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. This was a much more emotional take on the Guardians franchise than I was expecting out of James Gunn. It really focused on Rocket Raccoon's backstory, and I just thought it was expertly played. Plus, honestly, Guardians 3 has the best villain since Thanos in the MCU. The movie is wonderful, and it's a terrific sign-off for James Gunn, who now runs the DC universe, and fingers crossed that he does excellent work over there like he has done with Marvel. Number 4 is Godzilla Minus One, which I just saw over this holiday break, and holy crap, it blew my mind. The monster Godzilla is honestly terrifying. It evokes a lot of what made Jaws work, the original Jaws, and of course it has this other layer of commentary about the war and nuclear powers coming into effect and the destruction that Japan faced, and you really care about all of the people in this story. That's the thing that really hit me. You care about all of these different characters, and you really want to see them succeed, but it feels impossible, and that's why the movie works. It feels like, how the hell are these humans going to stop this rampaging lizard that can shoot nuclear lasers out of its mouth? It's crazy and so destructive and incredibly well made. Love this movie. I could say the same thing about John Wick Chapter 4. This came out earlier in the year and absolutely blew my mind. It's definitely an escalation on the madness and the choreography, the gun fu choreography that we've come to expect out of these John Wick films, but it's also done with a lighter touch as well. There's some great character work. Donnie Yen is fantastic in this movie, and Keanu Reeves just is so sublime as this character, and it's so artfully composed as well. It's beautiful cinematography, beautiful camera work, excellent new shots for the action in John Wick. I love this bloody movie. It was wonderful. A lot of sequels on this list, but number 2 for me is Spider-Man Across the Spiderverse. I freaking adore Into the Spiderverse, and truth be told, I like that movie a little more than Across the Spiderverse. But what's happening here with this new one, which I'm sure many of you have seen, if not all of you have seen, is just this escalation into this universe of different spider characters that we get to jump into for a little bit. So there's really interesting introductions of other types of spider characters that I loved, but at its heart, it's just this tale of Miles Morales and Gwen Stacy trying to kind of deal with the realities of what being a hero in a world that doesn't quite accept them kind of means, you know? Plus all of the other angsty things that befall teenagers as well, which has always been the secret sauce in the Spider-Man mythos. And this movie captures that. It captures the idea of choices that you make resonating and rippling across the people that you care about, and even off into the multiverse, the people that you're not aware of. And it's so well put together, and honestly, it's just mind-blowing how many beautiful elements of animation are employed in this film. Really stunning work and Across the Spider-Verse. And number 1 for me, and I know this might shock some of you out there, is Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. And I know it's not the best Indiana Jones movie. Raiders of the Lost Ark is still that. I know it's probably not the best movie of 2023, but it really mattered and it really resonated for me. I love this character. He's my favorite fictional character. I love Harrison Ford. He's my favorite actor. I love that we got to see Indy age and become a human being. I like Indy's reconnection with past characters that are incredibly important to his life and to this franchise. I love the visual effects as well. I like the scenery that we got to see in the movie. I thought it was really beautifully shot and beautifully told. But at its heart is a story about a character that I care about and have cared about for more than 40 years. And I was really, really taken by the movie. It's emotional heart, it's emotional center, and I like the action pieces, even though they were created for an 80-year-old action hero, and I know that. I didn't expect it to be a remake of Raiders, or a sort of fitting right beside Raiders. I wanted to see some growth and some change and some different perspectives on this character. And I think James Mangold and the whole team that put this together did an incredible job. It really resonated with me. I've seen it countless times already in 2023, and it's one that I know I'll keep going back to. I think it's a great fit in the indie collection, and I thought it was a wonderful send-off for both Harrison and Indiana Jones. That's why it's number one for me. But you know what? I do want to hear your list. What were your 5 favorite movies? Let's move on to my 5 favorite TV shows from 2023. Number 5 for me is The Bear. I was not expecting to love this show as much as I did. It's incredibly intense. It's about a restaurateur that, through some pretty crazy circumstances, inherits a property that he has to kind of transform and turn into a working kitchen and a working restaurant. And there's a cavalcade of very interesting characters, a lot of different relationship issues and history between some of these characters. Some crazy family sequences that are going to be quite breathtaking. We had never seen this show, and we binged it a little bit earlier this year, starting from season 1, which I think is a year or two away ago, and then recent episodes aired in 2023, and holy crap, is it incredible. The Bear is something that I'll never forget, especially because in my younger days I did work in a restaurant, and this brought back a lot of the pressure cooker sensation of working in a busy place, and man, it is fantastic work. Number 4 for me was Netflix's Blue Eye Samurai, which I went into thinking, okay, this has some really cool stylistic elements in it. I think I'm digging the action sequences, and there's some familiarity in some of that stuff as well. But what really struck me is the depths that we get to start to understand these characters, the trauma that they are contending with, and of course the animation is stunning, recreating this period in Japan where they had closed off the borders to any foreigners, and so the idea that there's a samurai walking around with blue eyes just seems like they've got a target on their back. And it's wonderful work. I was not prepared for how the show affected me emotionally. I love the characters. The villains are incredible. And yes, it is stunning to behold as well. Fantastic work. I can't wait to see the second season of Blue Eye Samurai. And speaking of terrific second seasons, number 3 for me is the second season of Loki, which was sensational. They really stepped it up a notch with this one. There was a much bigger sense of urgency. Characters are running through it. Felt like the entirety of the show. There's some great time travel elements. We're really getting a sense of the threat that Kang poses to all of these different timelines in this series. And there's the introduction of Ke Huy Quan, who is fantastic in the show. Absolutely loved his character. And so we're getting kind of the origins of the TVA and its value, and also different characters interacting with it and all the variations that they have across these different timelines, and what it means to just snip these timelines and stop them from growing. It was powerful. It was beautiful. It was some of Tom Hiddleston's best work as this character, and he's been awesome all the way along. I was moved, and I was really impressed intellectually as well. I just thought it was some of the tightest work that we've seen in the MCU, and it really is a compelling ending as well. Like, it really had a fantastic crescendo and build-up, and a very, very powerful ending. And sometimes, as we've seen with these Marvel shows, it's not so easy to land those endings, but this one was incredibly satisfying. Loki Season 2 was wonderful. Number 2 for me was the debut of The Last of Us television show, and this could have gone wrong in so many ways, but I'll tell you what, Bella Ramsey and Pedro Pascal are terrific as Ellie and Joel, and their whole journey across country and facing off against clickers and all the humans that are in peril, and just the sociopathy that they have to encounter wherever they go. Everybody's kind of in it for themselves, but there were also some really fantastic creative tangents and kind of new directions that we got to go with the show that we didn't see in the game. I still prefer playing The Last of Us 1 game more than this season of The Last of Us TV show. So anybody out there that's just watching my stuff for the television and movie content that I create, make sure you play that PlayStation game. The Last of Us Part 1 is unbelievable. And it's better than this killer show. But this show was a tour de force. It had everybody talking, deservedly so. It was beautifully produced. A real concern for the characters and lots of interesting side characters. Nick Offerman and Murray Bartlett were standouts in this terrific season. I'm very excited to see where they take us to with the second season of The Last of Us and how it's going to diverge from the stories that we got in the second Last of Us game. But this first season really was wonderful and powerful. It was difficult to take our attention away from the show. It was a real pop culture moment when it came out, so kudos to everybody involved. But my number one show for 2023 was the conclusion of Succession, which was devastating and heavy and funny and dark as hell, and it was a roller coaster as well. It was just like, where the hell are they going to take us? There's some big, shocking drops in the season, of course. It had everybody talking that has been watching the show all the way along. My wife and I had gone through every episode together, and we were just like in shock watching the wrap-up of the show. Incredible work from every performer on this series as well. Really intimate, really honest. Of course, there's always this dark comedy kind of streak through the whole thing, this sort of uber layer of intelligence and commentary on the, this media proliferate world that we live in. And this whole series is just incredibly well made. It's a masterclass in sort of having the camera capture these awkward, insane, but truthful moments. And these performers just being able to kind of riff in these sequences without breaking and without kind of winking at the camera or anything. It is just stunning work. And again, always difficult to end these hit shows because everybody's got an expectation of where the creators are going to take us. Just look at Game of Thrones. But these guys nailed it. Succession is wonderful all the way through, but if you stick with it to the ending, that last season is chef's kiss. All right, let's talk about my 5 favorite pieces of hardware from 2023, and I can't get into this list without acknowledging how much stuff PlayStation made for the PlayStation 5 this year. Controllers and VR, all kinds of stuff. But number 5 for me was the PlayStation Portal. I wasn't expecting to dig this as much as I do, and it's because it's not a Vita 2 or a PSP 2. It's really just a controller with a screen on it that hooks up to your PS5, but it's that controller that's the secret sauce. It's the DualSense controller, my favorite controller of all time. And yes, the DualSense Edge there's a plus on that because it's even better. But the Portal is pretty freaking incredible in your hand. It feels just like the DualSense. The screen is beautiful. It's not quite an OLED or anything like that, but it's beautiful. And it's so cool to be able to be wirelessly connected to your PS5 and sit anywhere that you want to. Provided you've got good Wi-Fi internet in your house, you can sit anywhere you want to and still be playing your PS5 game, or just jump back onto the TV or back to your device whenever you want to. Incredible convenience, well made. Doesn't feel like it's especially like super durable. I really wouldn't want to travel with this without a lot of protection around it, but it's a really fantastic luxurious controller with a screen on it to have in your house. But of course, I do want Sony to make us a dedicated PlayStation handheld. I keep asking for that. But some dedicated hardware that Sony did make for us this year is the PSVR 2, and it launched with some killer games like the ability to play Gran Turismo 7 in VR. Horizon Call of the Mountain is pretty damn slick. Resident Evil Village in VR. And of course, recently Sony worked out a deal with Capcom to make RE4 Remake in VR, which is incredible. There's some beautiful eye tracking technology in this. The Sense controllers are wonderful. It sits comfortably on your head. It's a little pricey, but Sony seems to be committed with its partnerships and with some of its first-party software to delivering some killer VR experiences for this device. And if you've got a PS5, I definitely think you should check the PSVR 2 out. Number 3 for me is actually more PlayStation stuff, and this isn't really new hardware. It's the Spider-Man 2 skinned PlayStation 5 and DualSense controller. When I saw that they were doing this just like they did with the PS4 Spider-Man model, I had to immediately purchase the Spider-Man 2 PS5, and it's sitting beside my TV. It looks beautiful. I feel so freaking spoiled every time I pick up my Spidey DualSense controller and jump into Spider-Man 2. It's a great way to celebrate an exquisite game, and the hardware just looks amazing. Number 2 on my list of favorite tech from 2023 is the Meta Quest 3, and I really think that Meta and its technology teams built something special here, and I think so much of it has to do with the fact that the augmented reality, the pass-through technology that's on this device is so slick. It's so freaking cool to be able to move windows inside of your space and to kind of see your environment, to not feel so removed from it, which I think is a major problem with VR. I mean, it's a wonderful thing to escape into virtual reality, but it does make you feel like you're very isolated away from the rest of the world. And that can be a little off-putting, especially if you get lost in a huge game like Asgard's Wrath 2. But MetaQuest 3 has some wonderful sort of ways to keep you still in the real world. And then when you want to get lost in these VR experiences and play massive things like the new Assassin's Creed Nexus or the Ghostbusters Rise of the Ghost Lord, of course, Asgard's Wrath 2 is one of the best VR games ever made. And all of it runs wonderfully. The horsepower of the MetaQuest 3 is great. It's very comfortable right out of the box. I didn't have to do anything, just pop it on my head and boom, I'm right into this great software. Very impressed by the tech of MetaQuest 3. But number one for me is an easy choice. This is the Steam Deck OLED, which Valve surprised us with in November. And man, when they announced this, I knew I had to pick this up immediately. It's a great upgrade in terms of screen technology, but there's other benefits as well. The battery life's a little bit better. The whole thing just feels a little tighter. And one thing that I've noticed is that because the Steam Deck has been such a runaway smash success, developers have just found a way to get most of their software, most of the games just running well and effortlessly. And mostly just by the default settings on everything. You have to fiddle a lot less now that the Steam Deck OLED is out there. And yes, things can run at 90 frames per second, which is amazing. And those black levels and the color saturation and the HDR brightness and all that stuff on that screen, wow, it is a breathtaking piece of technology. And it really makes me excited to see where these handheld PCs are going to go, you know, because everybody's responding. Of course, very soon we're going to hear about the Nintendo Switch 2, and likely there'll be follow-ups to the Ally and other devices out there. And so it's incredibly exciting to be a fan of systems that you can play portably, but then you can also play them on your TV as well. But no piece of hardware took my breath away more than the Steam Deck OLED. And finally, my last list is my 5 favorite games from 2023. And don't take this as my rocket and ray gun winners or anything like that. We're still going to go through the whole process of the awards. But these are the games that I think about the most from this year. And when I just sat down and sort of listed them out about the games that I had the most fun with, this is what I came up with. Number 5 for me is Alan Wake 2. And I thought that this was a pretty fantastic, cool, spooky survival horror experience where I was jumping in between characters and I was being terrified by jump scares and creepy little goofballs that were jumping out at me and freaking me out. And there was some familiarity with that experience. And I was like, okay, I'm getting this. I'm digging this. And then the game starts to take some pivots and transitions and surprise you with some of its thematic constructs and its narrative choices. And there was just a moment where my head blew off. And I'm like, I cannot believe what this game is doing. I was like standing up. I stood up from my chair. I'm just like, what? What am I playing? This is awesome. This is so creative and clever and ambitious and risky and wonderful. And that's what I came away with. It's just that this game felt impossible. It felt so outlandishly creative and ridiculous that it's hard to imagine how it got through all of the processes to be made. Just the construct of it, the building of it, but also all of the approvals to greenlight it. It's amazing. And, you know, the team at Remedy just did something remarkable with this piece of software. It just feels like this wacky, massively budgeted indie game that's made with tons of heart. And it's so fun to play. It's so tuned. It's so freaky. And it's funny, and it's just a wonderful piece of software. So Alan Wake 2 is number 5 for me. Something else that is absolutely wacky and clever and creative in some outlandish ways, but maybe a little bit more predictable, but no less fun, is number 4, and it's Super Mario Wonder. And I was riveted to this game, and what's crazy for me is that I was playing this, I got the code for it while my family and I were on vacation at Disneyland. So I was comparing and contrasting to my experience at this awesome theme park, and then I jump into this awesome theme park of the game, and I was doing all of these crazy levels. And what really sort of knocked it out of the park for me was the use of music and the use of these little flowers that were chatting with me and encouraging me, and then sometimes singing along in these weird, twisted, flower-infused sequences that were just insane and hard to wrap your mind around some of the stuff that you had to do. But they were so clever, and it was so addictive. And I've found myself, since I finished the game, replaying those levels a lot in my mind. I haven't had time to go back and replay the game, but I absolutely loved it. I loved its different layers of difficulty and just its joyfulness, its playfulness, its self-aware kind of qualities, its sort of tip of the hat that to all eras of the Super Mario franchise, its ambition, and its sort of connection to the roots of why we love video games. It's just a joy. It was really, really fun to play, and it was another knockout smash from Nintendo in 2023. And number 3 for me is a little bit of a cheat. It's Cyberpunk 2077, and I played through the Phantom Liberty DLC, which was new content this year for the game, but it allowed me to revisit Cyberpunk 2077 again on the PlayStation 5 and also on the Steam Deck and the PC. And man, that game is just breathtaking. In general, Phantom Liberty is just an amazing escape. It's a great addition to the game. I can't recommend it enough. It's powerful, it's beautiful, it's cool, it's hyper cool. All of the cool new gameplay additions and the characters that you interact with and have to take down or ally yourself with, so wonderful. But just the game itself, all the developers have been able to kind of tune it and address it and, respond to the criticism and respond to the complaints and the crashes. And now it's just running wonderfully. It runs unbelievably well on the PlayStation 5, which has become my primary place to play it. And it's even wonderful on the Steam Deck, which is surprising as hell, considering all of the technology in there. But it's a game that's just received a ton of love, and you feel that when you get lost into it. So it is arguably the most impressive technical achievement I find in 2023. And there's just some wonderful work in there, like from the performers and the actors and all the facial details and modeling and the weaponry choices and the mission structures and the environmental assets and the work that you see across everything in this game. Stunning. And that's why it's number 3 in 2023. And number 2 for me, and again, is a little bit of a cheat, but I can't argue the fun that this game gave me, the joy that this game gave me. It was a stealthy kind of launch that Nintendo pulled off for Metroid Prime Remastered at the beginning of the year. And I, like lots of others out there, was screaming and freaking out over the fact that we could just start playing it right away. And I did, and I was obsessive about it, and it was just such a joy to jump into this world again on this exquisite hardware, whether I was playing it on TV or playing it in handheld mode. It was just an impeccably crafted experience. It reminded me a lot of what Rocksteady did with Arkham Asylum, which was confined and smart, and I'm sure a lot of stuff hit the editing floor for both Metroid Prime and for Arkham Asylum, but they're just so tuned and wonderful, and they both stand the test of time. So it was just ridiculously enjoyable to jump back into this game with its enhancements and improvements and its quality of life additions, and to just feel the intelligence and the craftsmanship of these developers from 20 years ago. Just kill it, just nail it, and make a game that you can play forever, for the rest of time, and you're still going to have tons of fun out of it. So I think Metroid Prime Remastered is an essential game for any kind of player out there, and even though it's based on a 20-plus-year-old game, it's an incredible gift in 2023. That's why it's number 2. But number 1 for me, and I think you could probably guess this, is Marvel's Spider-Man 2. And what I loved about this game, obviously it's just fun. The traversal system is just fun to whip around and just get everywhere in the game. They augmented the world of New York City. There's more to see, more to explore, crazier villains and massive escalation with the character types and the threats and the things that you can get into. The combat is unbelievable in this game, but it is that juxtaposition with the quieter moments, the impactful moments, the character-based moments, where we really get to understand Peter Parker and Miles Morales and their collection of allies and loved ones around them that registered the most for me. And so the game became more of like this beautiful sort of long story, like this long 20-hour blockbuster movie where we got to dip into these lives and to see what makes each of these characters tick, and the respect that they have for each other, the empathy that they have for each other is really beautiful storytelling. I was really moved by these characters. I really cared about them. I even cared about the fact that Spider-Man, at his core, doesn't want to see the villains just be squashed. You know, he's got concern for them. He tries to rescue them. And you feel that as a player. It's empathy the game, is the way that it felt like for me. You know, yes, you do these incredible superheroics, but the concern and understanding that all of these different characters have to have in this superpowered world that they're facing and having to grapple with is just remarkable storytelling. That's what hit me with Spider-Man 2. I was expecting the fun to be high. I was expecting the combat to be wonderful and the traversal to work better than probably anything else in the game. It's so good, the traversal in these Spider-Man games, that every time I come off of one, whatever game I play next suffers from it, because I'm always expecting to zip line and whip around inside of the next world that I'm playing, whether it's a sports game or a Mario game or whatever. I just want to web swing everywhere because it's so freaking fun in these Marvel Spider-Man games. And this is the best one, and it was my favorite game of 2023. So there you go. There are a bunch of my favorite things from 2023. It was a wonderful year. There was so much entertainment to dive into. I had a fantastic time covering all this stuff for you, talking with creative people across the spectrum, playing with all of these wonderful toys and these incredible games, and seeing these movies and TV shows. So thank you so much for your support. I definitely want to hear your favorites from the year down below. That's what the comments are for, so let me know all of those. We will see you in 2024. There's lots of stuff to be excited for in the new year, so we'll see you there. Thanks for watching, everybody. Happy New Year, and play forever.